Jefferson Elementary School District Board meeting to order. It is now 7:04 p.m. Members present?
Shaquille Ali,
Here.
Marie Brizuela,
Here.
Clayton Koo,
Here.
Rebecca Douglas,
Here.
Manufo Leah Inga Anawai.
Here. I'd like to ask our honorable board trustee from the Jefferson Union High School District to lead us in the pledge this evening, please. Thank you, Ms. Tejada.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Trustee Tejada. I'd like to give our board members an opportunity to review our board meeting guidelines. And we also wanted to bring the public into this moment of reflection. Ms. McCulloch always posts that up for everyone to view what we're looking at during this time.
We don't have a new one yet.
We good?
We just have our new one.
Okay. Thank you. So we're moving on to the approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion, we approve the agenda as presented.
We have a motion? Second? Thank you. We have a second?
I heard Mr. Ali say.
Yeah. Thank you. Agenda approved.
We have to vote.
Do we have to?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Still getting the hang of this. Thank you. So if we could get a consensus and vote for the approval of the agenda?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Moving on to board member acknowledgements and commendations. We will start with Dr. Douglas.
I don't have any acknowledgments or commendations. I don't think tonight. I just want to extend my heartfelt sympathy to the school in Florida that suffered a horrible attack today. And if I can say send a message to our leaders in Washington, D.C., could we please have some meaningful gun control? I'm tired of thoughts and prayers. I want action. Thank you.
I want to echo the comments of Dr. Douglas as well too, in terms of today's, I guess, whatever happened today in that Florida high school. So our deepest condolences to them. I also want to commend a couple of events I've been to since our last school board meeting. First one on my list is I went to the Thomas R. Policita winter concert. It was great. I was there with Mr. Suela as well. It was great as usual. I also stopped by FDR's Lunar New Year celebration. They had lion dances. They had their school concert. And they had a lot of great food. So just want to commend that as well. I also stopped by the PAC meeting last week. Ms. McCulloch did a great job leading as usual. And then last Thursday, I went to the JFK Family Night on Victory Over Violence, trying to teach families and parents about addressing passive violence and making sure that those were addressed early on before it kind of created any harm for other people. And then this past weekend, I finished my Master in Governance for CSBA. So.
Well, I also wanted to say prayers also for the school in Florida. And somehow we need to become more engaged in fact, yes, the gun control, but also what are we all doing to make it a better place for our children? Obviously, many of the students that have done this type of violence has somehow either been bullied or something's been happening. So we need to do even a better job of making sure that none of that is happening. Other than that, and I did attend some of the events, which were great, but I won't repeat them all because we all go to the same ones all the time. But I also wanted to mention that we did lose a former employee recently who passed away, and her name is Jackie Norman. She worked in the district office. So I'm not sure if any of you were aware of that, but maybe we can close the meeting today in her memory.
Thank you, everyone. I share, as I know many of us here tonight, our deepest sympathies to all of the families in Florida. It's just nerve-wracking because there's become a sense of normalcy around that, seeing it on the news and seeing it on social media. It was difficult to turn on the news or look at the news streaming on your phone. I was on last Thursday, I was invited to a group of freshmen's group, predominantly Latino group, but they were talking about mental health. And they were freshmen, but I was involved with them when they were in middle school. And they touched on mental health issues. But the things that they had disclosed last year and to hear where they're at now, they actually seem like they're in a worse place than they were last year, which begs the question for other schools, what are we doing? I mean, it's kind of hard to applaud our efforts of being number 3 on the list of the safest school district and reflect on what happened today in Florida. I love that we're able to do well here, but I would love for people to learn from us too, because there's a lot of great things continuing to happen here. But I realize in other parts of our county, they don't have a lot of the great things that we have, which is unfortunate. I don't know why that is, but it is a question that I had presented to the county office, because it was very disturbing to hear that this was shared conversations with Aragon and Hillside, and these were newly new ninth graders that had these mental health issues for a few years, and this was the first time I was involved at that level. So I do hope that as a collective we can have broader conversations around mental health and bullying and things that bring us to this point. But on a happier note, happy Valentine's to everyone. I mean, we really are to celebrate a lot of love in the community. We have a lot to celebrate. Very thankful for our little gifts today. I mean, but it's a token of things that we can be grateful for. I continue to say that I love being a part of this district. I was at the city council meeting this past Monday, and there's a lot to talk about. There's things happening in North County that haven't happened before. So we definitely have a lot to celebrate. So I'm glad that we're here today. Those of you that are watching from home, we just be thankful. Be very thankful that we can be here sitting before each other discussing important things. So thank you for the time.
Oh, and I wanted to mention, I heard about a coyote that went up Pine Haven onto 87th and then up the stairs to Tobias. So, and more than one time. So alert the school that there might be a little creature.
Maybe it'll eat the
Creature
gophers
out there.
that are messing up the field.
And it's in the daytime. It's not at nighttime. So it's happening everywhere. They're out there and they're hungry. So.
Thank you. Correspondence from our superintendent?
Yes, I have a couple of items. First is I received the letter from the County Office of Education commenting on our first interim submitted in December. And as expected, the county concurs with the district's positive certification, but did have a couple of comments. And perhaps this is the one routine letter that we get, but this one has the strongest language that I've received from the county office, and I just want to read you this one section. It's under the deficit spending section.
The county superintendent is highly concerned about the significant operating deficits in the unrestricted general fund. The structural deficits in the unrestricted general funds are approximately $5 million in 2018-19, $6.9 million in 2019-20. The deficits shown at first interim do not include the costs of a recent negotiation settlement of approximately $1.2 million, which was approved by the board on November 8th. Then I skip, and then the next section. The county office is aware the district has adequate funds to sustain the proposed $1 million of transfers reflected in the multi-year projections and to temporarily mitigate the significantly declining fund balance in the general fund. But to maintain long-term fiscal solvency, it's crucial the district take immediate action to address these operating deficits in the general fund. The first interim shows $3.6 million budget reduction to be implemented in 1920. Although the proposed budget cuts do not eliminate the operating deficits, they are essential to reducing the risk of insolvency for the district. The district is strongly encouraged to fully implement the proposed budget reductions. In addition, the district needs to develop a fiscal solvency plan to achieve the balanced budget in the future. It is also important to establish and maintain a healthy reserve to provide the district protection and flexibility to meet future contingencies and ensure no disruption of the educational program and services to students. So that section is, and everything else is just standard, was written for us, so with us in mind. And so I just wanted the board to be aware. The County Office of Education does review our budget and is the one that will alert the state if we are reaching fiscal insolvency. And so, that is their primary responsibility. So since then, we have a new proposed governor's budget, and Ms. Kessler will review that today. That changes things slightly, but I think the bigger picture is still true. So we'll look forward to that in the coming months. The second thing I wanted to share is, and it's sort of ironic. So the board has shared with me the desire to do better at maintaining our buildings and ensuring that they're kept well maintained, especially we're investing so many funds into them. So I've started to work with this group called FICMAT, and I just want to, I'll tell you what it means, but focus on the second part of the name, not the first part. But they're called the Fiscal Crisis, don't listen to that, and Management Assistant Team. So we're working with them so they can give us some ideas about how to improve our department, our facilities department, on three things: organizational and staffing review, analyzing the current workflow and distribution of functions, and our operational processes and procedures. And what all that means is, do we have the right positions for the job that we need to accomplish? And getting a third party to look at our department will provide a great roadmap. It did for special education 5 years ago when we did that, and I hope it will do here as well. And then the last thing, and I don't think we have anyone here. The president of the Jefferson Council PTA asked me to announce, if she was not able to make it, that they're having their Founders Day celebration on Monday the 26th, 5:30 p.m., Serramonte del Rey in the Galleria Room.
Thank you. Administrator comments?
I just want to speak a little bit to the Florida and all the other shooting incidences that have happened in the last decade. Mental health is healthcare like every bit as much as a broken leg, cancer, heart disease, and it has to be seen that way. Somehow these people who are committing these acts of violence are not feeling that they fit in or that they're accepted as complete human beings. Or equals, and this has got to stop. I believe that we are the first step in society that has the opportunity to reach these people in their younger years. And anything that education can do to help children feel accepted and valuable will decrease future events as these kids grow up. And that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Need these now. Can't even read my own writing. Yeah, my heart's with what happened. Every time I looked at the news, it was just getting so bad, and it's just unbelievable that we repeat this over and over in our country. So my heart's with the families. I had gone recently with Paul Hagan and Dina Conti to New York for a conference. It was put on by the American Federation of Teachers and United Federation of Teachers. It was called the Center for School Improvement. And a lot of what we talked about, if not all what we talked about, was focusing on restorative practices and how to work with students and really learn who they are, where they're coming from. When they come into our classrooms, more than just kind of sit down and do your work, a lot of our kids are coming from being the main person at their home. And, a lot of our families, our students need to be, or our teachers are learning how to engage with them more. And so it was really focused on that. We are as a district so much farther along in working with our teachers and our staff on these restorative practices. It was a lot of the folks that we worked with were saying that they had just even read the article on the flight over to the conference, and that was the first time they had come across it. So we are working with our kids and our staff to identify and help kids when they're feeling that way. And it was really something we were proud to be a part of. So it was good to work with Paul and Dean in that capacity.
Thank you.
Just to echo what everyone is saying, our student services department has expanded. I mean, having counselors at elementary sites and using our local control funds to support the social emotional learning of our students, I think that has really been, commending you for supporting that in our local control accountability plan. And so we're going to continue this work, and it's being the third safest school in the district. I think it has a lot to do with how much we have paid attention to our student social emotional learning. I just also wanted to add, we had our our STEM fair, science, technology, engineering, and math fair on Saturday. Dr. Douglas was with us, and we will be bringing the winners to, I think, the March 14th meeting, the first meeting in March. So you'll be seeing some of the presentations then.
Thank you.
I knew I'd done something.
Bernie, Mr. Gonzalez, would you be able to share those letters that you read to us? Copies of it?
I will.
Okay, thank you.
At this time, if we have any, I don't believe I have any speaker cards for anyone wishing to address the board.
No.
Okay. All right. We will move forward on the consent agenda, but before doing so, I'd like to request that we remove 10C and call for a vote on that one.
Is it 10C?
10C.
Okay. I will make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as amended.
Second?
Thank you. And if everyone can agree
Is
by
there-
saying aye.
We do need a voice vote on this
Voice
one.
vote?
Or roll call?
Roll call.
Okay.
We could have roll call for that one.
Mr. Ali?
Aye.
Mrs. Brizuela?
Aye.
Mr. Koo? Dr. Douglas?
Aye.
Miss Leah Inga Anuai?
Aye. Right. And I believe, unfortunately, we will table our county update as our supervisor is not able to join us this evening. Possibly be with us at a future meeting. And right now, we'd like to welcome our presentation for our Measure I, Citizens Bond Oversight Committee report from Ms. Tejada.
Good evening. And I dug all my Valentines. Is that not working? Okay. All right. Let's see. I'm very pleased to serve a third year as the chair of the Bond Oversight Committee. And here is our report to the Jefferson Elementary School District Board of Trustees. As required by the statutes and bylaws of the Measure I bond election, the Citizens Oversight Committee is pleased to provide our annual report to the Board of Trustees of the Jefferson Elementary School District. Members of the committee are Tony Bayudan, Pamela DiGiovanni, Thomas A. Norris, Catherine Padilla, Kathy Pentazzi, Lillian Pena, myself, Rosie Tejada, Danny Vinculado, and Adrienne Zanini. On April 19, 2017, the committee met to review current expenditures and discuss the progress of the Thomas R. Policita School Renovation Project Phases 2B and 3, as well as the district office modernization and FDR new classroom and restroom wing. Additionally, the committee reviewed the Oversight Committee's bylaws and member terms. On June 14, 2017, the committee met to review current expenditures and discuss the progress of the Thomas R. Policita School Renovation Project, phases 2B and 3, as well as the district office modernization and FDR new classroom and restroom wing. This was the final meeting for retiring committee members Vaughn Jones, June Newhouse, and Linda Tejas. On September 13, 2017, the committee met to review current expenditures and discuss the progress of the Thomas R. Policita School Renovation Project Phases 2B and 3, as well as the district office modernization, the FDR new classroom and restroom wing, and the Fernando Rivera new classroom and restroom wing. Rosie Tejada was elected by the committee to continue as committee chair for an additional year. Adrienne Zanini was elected as vice chair, and Lillian Pena as secretary. The committee was informed that on June 14, 2017, the JESD Board of Trustees passed Resolution 17-06-14A, authorizing election of 2012 General Obligations Bonds, Series D, to be issued. Included in the resolution under Section 27, Oversight Committee Bylaws, is an amendment to Section 5.4, allowing committee members to serve 3 consecutive terms on the committee. On January 17, 2018, the committee met to review current expenditures and discuss the progress of the Thomas R. Policita School Renovation Project Phases 2B and 3, as well as the district office modernization and the FDR new classroom and restroom wing, the Fernando Rivera new classroom and restroom wing, the SBA fencing, the Benjamin Franklin gas pipe replacement, and the new play structure projects at George Washington and Woodrow Wilson schools. Additionally, the committee reviewed the annual independent financial and performance audit reports as presented by Ahmad Garibay, partner with Vavrinic, Trine, Day and Company, LLP. This was the first meeting for new committee members, Pamela DiGiovanni, Catherine Padilla, and Danny Vinculado. Based on our review and observations, the Citizens Oversight Committee finds that the district is in compliance with the requirements of Article 13A, Section 1B3 of the California Constitution, and that funds are being used for the purposes specified in the ballot language. The committee is pleased with the district's performance on the modernization bond program to date and looks forward to the successful completion of the 2018 projects. Respectfully submitted, Rosie Tejada, Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Tejada. Thank you for all the incredible work that you and the committee are doing. I wanted to see if there were any comments from the board or questions.
Just to extend my thanks also for the time you put in and the service you've given us. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Thank you as well to Ms. Tejada for tonight's presentation, as well as to everyone on the Measure I committee for all their time and their efforts.
Well, Ms. Kessler and Bill, Mr. Heath have been really great.
keeping us apprised and, I didn't realize we had 4 meetings. I thought, oh, we don't meet that often, but we do. We take it seriously because, it's about our kids. So, thank you very much.
Well, I just want to say thank you also, but also, could we get copies of that?
It's in our
Yes,
backup
it
material.
should be in your board
Yeah,
packet.
I know, but I mean, does the public all get copies too? Do they-
It's a backup to the agenda.
Oh, so they all
Yeah.
got it? Okay, sorry. I didn't know if they got it, so I want to make sure, because usually we like to have handouts for them.
Ah, I see.
But thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we will have a discussion on the 2018 CSBA Delegate Assembly election. The board will select up to 3 candidates to be considered as delegates to the CSBA Delegate Assembly. And we're glad to have one of our own.
And as far as I could tell, we only have 3 candidates.
Right. Right, so
Well, I'm in
5.
favor of selecting them all.
Do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion to nominate, or I'm not sure if I can nominate myself, but I'll nominate Kalima Salahuddin from the Jefferson Union High School District, Amy Koo from the Belmont Redwood Shores School District, and myself.
I would only make one amendment to that. You're not nominating, you're voting for these candidates. Okay.
We're past nominating.
Yeah. I was waiting to see who's going to say this.
So with the correction of voting, do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Awesome. Yay. All
So
right.
that gives us, if I'm not mistaken, 1 vote, right?
Or-
Yeah, because it's.
Yeah, I mean, we,
Yes.
yeah,
We
the board
represent one
has
vote,
a
yeah.
vote, yes, yes.
We can now say "to coup" for you.
I'm leaving.
Awesome. Well, we're
One
glad
bad pun and we lose it.
If I knew that's all it took, I'll have more up my sleeve.
That's okay.
Okay, so we will take, thank you for that. So moving on to resolution number 18-02-14, calling for full and fair funding of California's public schools. Our governing board will consider adoption of this resolution calling for full and fair funding of California public schools. Do we have
Should we
discussion or if a reading or?
read it or something so the public can know what we're voting on?
It's fairly long, but we could pull out the,
Summarize it or something.
yeah. So I've got it in front of me if you'd like. I could, so that it begins by pointing out that California is the 6th largest economy in the world and the largest gross domestic product of any state in the nation, and that despite that, our state falls in the nation's bottom quintile on nearly every major measure of public K-12 school funding and school staffing. And whereas California ranks 45th nationally in the percentage of taxable income spent on education, 41st in per pupil funding, 45th in pupil-teacher ratios, and 48th in pupil-staff ratios. And it goes on quite a ways on this, that noting that our funding hasn't increased in any significant way when adjusted for inflation for more than a decade. And that we've only just this year reached full funding of the local control funding formula, which returns us to the place we were in 2007, and so forth. On to say that now therefore be it resolved that the governing board of the Jefferson Elementary School District urges the state legislature to fund California public schools at the national average or higher by the year 2020, and at a level that is equal to or above the average of the top 10 states nationally by 2025, and to maintain at a minimum this level of funding until otherwise decreed.
Amen.
Did you say amen?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
You did. I think that, was that a motion?
It could be.
It was, we need help.
I know that, I think the CSBA sent this resolution out to every school
Yes,
district
I
in all
know.
of California, so I know that it's this resolution being passed up and down the state, so I
Yep.
just think it makes sense for us to
Yeah,
also
they-
join
yeah, they-
everybody else as well.
So do we have a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we adopt resolution number 1802, or 0214, calling for the full and fair funding of California's public schools.
Second.
You have a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Actually, it's a resolution.
I believe we need a roll call vote for resolution,
Sorry.
yes.
Mr. Ali?
Aye.
Mrs. Brizuela?
Aye.
Mr. Koo?
Aye.
Dr. Douglas?
Aye.
Miss Leah Inga Anawai?
Aye.
I think we're all happy to vote twice for that one.
Thank you, and I will make sure that the appropriate bodies receive this resolution, as well as our local legislators.
Yes.
Even if they don't represent us, but they might represent a district right next to us, that they should know.
Thank you. All right. We will now discuss determining the date for our upcoming special meeting.
Yeah, so there was some follow-up item. There was at least one follow-up item from the February 3rd meeting, and I thought the board can just take a few moments here to look at the dates that are available for a special meeting. It would be at the district office, so.
So these are the dates already.
Yeah, so we have the dates here.
Are these dates,
These are
are they
recommended.
Saturdays, Sundays,
I
Mondays,
believe they're weekdays.
weekdays?
Yeah, the 21st is a Wednesday.
Is a Wednesday.
I meant to look at that before I left.
I would very much like to push it back to, say, the 7th or 8th of March. The February dates, my mother will be visiting during that time.
Oh.
I'd prefer not to be gone too many evenings.
Okay, so the 7th and 8th, which days are those?
7th is a Wednesday, the 8th is Thursday.
7th is Wednesday.
And the 8th is,
Thursday.
yeah, and the 21st is also
But
Wednesday.
that's not good. Wednesday?
And the
Oh,
21st, I will be out of town,
On March 21st?
March 21st,
You're gonna be, are you?
And
here on
22nd?
The 7th?
and 22nd, yeah.
Are you here on the 7th?
I'm here on the 7th and 8th, yeah.
Okay, so
Does that
Wednesday.
work?
Yeah,
For
I would say the 7th.
There was the one item on superintendent evaluation that we were going to fill out a little bit more.
Yeah. Does the 7th or 8th work for one of those two?
Which day?
The 8th is not good for me, but the 7th is
The
okay.
7th?
7th is a Wednesday when we're kind of used to.
Yeah, we're used to
Yeah.
Wednesdays.
Is there a time preference, 7 o'clock, 6:30, 5 o'clock?
Keep the same
Want to
time.
keep it at the
Seven.
same time?
I would
So
say,
March
I imagine
7th at
you can
7?
get much
Yeah,
earlier than
okay.
that, yeah.
7 o'clock on March 7th, thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
And you'll send out a reminder to us?
Yes.
However, I'm fine right
Okay.
now.
So it has then been determined that we will meet on March 7th at 7 PM.
Okay.
So, thank you. All right. Curriculum and instruction. We are looking at, I love this, a trip to Washington DC for our students at Benjamin Franklin, Fernando Rivera, and Tierra Policita. The administration is recommending approval of this visit, which is on April 7th, returning on the 11th. I don't know if you wanted to share any details with us?
I can just add to it that this is the first time all three middle schools will be attending. Ben Franklin is joining this year, so they're very excited to coordinate this and that they're all going together, and it's during their spring break.
And how many students do we have going on this trip?
I'd have to add it all together.
Let's see here.
I think it's about 70, 80,
Yeah.
6
Just
plus,
wanted to have that announced.
77? Did I calculate that right?
yeah, wow, a lot of students from Fernando.
I wanna be on that
63
flight.
plus 15. Yeah, I make 77
Yeah,
out
that's
of that.
awesome. That's a nice big group.
So
Thank you
is-
to everyone that's
is,
able to make that happen.
everybody eligible to go, or
It's-
some choose not to go?
It's, I believe it's through their student government.
Uh-huh.
And Fernando Rivera has also other, I think their crew.
Yeah, no, it's open to all students, and not everyone elects to go. It's during a spring break vacation period, and they do fundraise jointly and make sure that funding is not an obstacle for anybody.
Thank you.
It's only 15, it's not that many.
Did we have any other questions on this trip?
No.
We will make sure to have them come and present their adventures subsequent to their trip.
Yep.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
If we have no other questions, do we have a motion?
I will make a motion that we approve the Benjamin Franklin, Fernando Rivera, and TRP policy to school trips to Washington, D.C. and New York City, April 7th through 11th, 2018.
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Looking forward to hearing an update on our instructional technology.
It's cold outside. Chills. Is it air conditioning? I doubt it.
I just felt it. So.
I'm freezing.
I just felt it.
It's just like
My friend the clicker. I always get stuck with this.
Thank you.
Oh, it's not working.
Is that okay? Okay. See if I have better luck with the clicker tonight. I'm always challenged by this one. Okay. Well, it's great to be back again to talk about just a few of the many things that are going on in the technology department. I am very pleased to be joined by Andrew Sparks, who's one of our district technology integration specialists, Beth Goff, who's a principal at MP Brown, and Justine Kay, who's a librarian at Ben Franklin, who've all been actively involved in our Makerspace program that's growing, and I thought it would be best to hear from the people who are actively involved with doing the work. First, a couple of other updates. As I mentioned last year, we embarked on an effort this year to develop a strategic plan for instructional technology. The plan that we currently had in place was developed about 4 years ago, and when we realized that plan had been accomplished, we decided it was time to move forward and think about what our next steps were. And the driving question really that we've been looking at is how do we leverage the technology that we have, which is a tremendous amount, to ensure continued growth for each and every student. And so we've taken that question and we've met with many stakeholders, and we're in the process of developing a finalized report, but I wanted to just share a couple highlights. On the next slide, if you'll just take a minute, this is our working mission statement that we're working under, so I'll give you a minute to read that. We all agree it's lengthy and wordy and a very long sentence, so we're working to get in everything that we want to say. So again, it's kind of a working mission statement, but this has been really what's been driving our document. What's coming out of this plan are a few key goals that were very important to all of our stakeholders. The first and foremost is providing effective, equitable, and efficient use of technology for all of our students. So that's something we strive for at all of our school sites. Really working with students on becoming respectful and appropriate digital citizens in our community. So everything from being respectful online to appropriate use of technology, especially in our middle schools. This has been a huge push that we've been working with our counseling team on to really teach students how to be really safe and respectful online. A third goal is how we can engage teachers and students in what's being called sort of deeper learning, which we'll talk about in a little bit, how they can be effective consumers, connecting and creating and curating content on all levels. So they're not just passively taking in information, but how they can also create information and curate a variety of sources in order to make deeper meaning of what they're learning. And our ultimate goal that's emerging is really to create confident learners by the time they leave 8th grade, how they can have the skills that they need to be discerning users of information and taking in what they need to have so they can continue on their educational path once they leave our district. So more on that once the plan is finalized. very long awaited. On February 28th in the evening, we're going to launch our new website for the district and all 14 of our schools. So by the morning of March 1st, you should see a new and hopefully improved site. What we're working on is they do all have a very similar feel, but we've been working with all of our school sites to make sure that we're also meeting the individual needs of the school and that it has the distinct flair and, and feeling that the schools have as well. Am I able to click that? Do you want to take a quick peek? Yes, I know Mr. Koo wants to take a quick peek. Sorry.
You okay?
It's brighter, it's cleaner. The mission's too big, so there's little things we're working on. But just in general, we wanted it cleaner, less text heavy, and more icon image oriented so that people could navigate more simply. And if you scroll down a little bit, just trying to make headline news just quick bullets where people can choose to read more information and hopefully provide more information in an easier, more accessible way for our users. Yeah, so just to kind of give you a little peek of what it looks like. More to come on that too. So look for that on the evening of the 28th. In talking about student learning, we have some really interesting data coming out of our LCAP surveys that we administered to our students in the fall. One of the questions that we asked the students is, I use a computer daily in class, and of our students in grades 4 through 8, you can see from 2015, we started out at 12%. Last year was at 45%, and this fall, 72% of students said they use technology on a daily basis. The next two questions are the ones that I actually really look to for the work that we do. Students feel that they are more involved in class when they use computers, and you can see that growth from 49%, 55%, and then this year it was 72% of students feel that they're more involved. And then finally, I'm a better learner since I have been using computers in my classroom, and that has grown from 34% to 59% up to 74% this fall. So I think that lends itself back to that goal we have of always thinking about confident learners and how students feel like they can engage with their learning and be in control of what they're learning as well. What I'd like to devote the rest of the presentation to is our journey into making, or how the maker spaces have grown. I asked Beth and Andrew and Justine to be here just to highlight the programs that are happening at 3 of our schools and how we are setting this up to actually grow to other schools as well. I like this quote by Mitch Resnick. He's a professor at MIT. Brilliant man that I was fortunate to meet several years ago. And he developed with Seymour Papert the lifelong kindergarten. And it's a stem of the Department of Education at MIT, and they really believe that the most learning happens in kindergarten, and why do we stop learning that way just because we get older? And so they have this great room that looks like a kindergarten room, and it's a bunch of PhD students learning and thinking about how people learn, and they've just been able to develop a lot of great programs out of that system. And so this quote, I think, really speaks to what we've done with making. It's that there's nothing more important in today's society than the ability to think and to act creatively. So that's been a real driving force of why we have pursued making spaces. Another one is this statistic that really jumped out at me when I heard it last year. If you look at that statistic, in 2015, the number of people graduating with a degree in computer science was just under 60,000. The number of jobs available in computer science was 527,000. So when we think about how are we preparing our students for college and career, we can see there's already a gap in this area, and how can we prepare our students to think about different career options and what's available to them. And I really think making and computer science and the new next generation science standards really help prepare students for this world that they're moving into. Just a few connections to the NGSS and engineering practices. It's all about asking questions, defining problems, which is what the heart of making is, where you have a problem and students think about creative ways to solve a problem. And later you'll hear about what some of these problems are that the students have created. I want to get to the heart of it, so I'm going to skip through. When earlier I talked about what does deeper learning mean, it's just really thinking about how students can start making connections while they're mastering the core academic content, how they can think critically, solve complex problems, work collaboratively, create effectively. And what I really like is they really learn how to learn, like how to be lifelong learners to continue with what they're doing now as they move through their lives, and to really develop an academic mindset. I hope Andrew shares his first experience with making in our first 3D printer, where it took him 10 times. And he was really frustrated 9 times. And when the 10th one came in, he came in my office, he's like, look, I finally did it. And, you know, it's great to see even as adults how we have that, you know, you fail, and you just keep trying until you actually figure it out and get there. So, our journey so far into making. It all started at the beginning of last year, where we were invited by the County Office of Education to apply for what they call a partnership. And we call it a partnership because it's not a grant. It didn't involve any sort of money being given, but MP Brown and TRP were selected. We had 4 schools apply, and those 2 were selected, so it was great that we had a middle school example and an elementary. And through that partnership, we are able to connect with many organizations around the country. And while it didn't provide financial support, what it really did was gave the schools opportunity to build a team, create a vision, and really think about what they wanted these making spaces to look like at their school sites. And so you'll see how those programs have grown and taken shape. I am going to turn it over to Beth Goff, who's going to share her vision that she created with her team at MP Brown. I'll click for you.
Oh, thank you. I don't like the clicker either. Good evening. It's nice to see you all again. I'm going to do the bragging part first because I'll just get that out of the way. But we've been doing making for 2 years now, and for 2 years we've had a 5th grade student qualify for the county STEM fair. Pretty cool. The quality of our science fair projects has gone from the entire class doing 2 projects, bubblegum and plants. That no longer exists. If you walked into our science fair this past week, you would have seen such a huge variety, and they are no longer printed off the internet. They're actually problem solving. They're thinking it through. They're trying to figure it out. And that's been the benefit, one of the benefits of making. We have a diverse population. Over 18 languages are spoken at MP Brown. But what making does is create a common experience for our students, that they can all come to the table. They see each other in a different light. Their strengths are just as people we make assumptions about because we can't do our math the right way or we have a problem in the reading class. And this has allowed our students to shine with one another. So it's created a connectedness and engagement that didn't exist before for them. Last week I got to go see the 1st graders were doing their Maketivity activity, and they're looking at the difference between cylinders and rectangular prisms and which one could hold the most weight, number of books, and why that happened. Their 1st graders are having these conversations, and they're counting their books, and are like so excited. It was awesome. We're also having, through making, they are able to use all of the soul shop experiences that we're giving them. We're teaching them these conversations, but we're giving them real life experiences to walk through this problem solving piece. They can't just say, I give up and walk away, because their whole team is depending upon them to solve the problem together, figure it out, whether it's through spheros or little bits and all of these things I had no idea existed until 2 years ago. And they're learning to code. It's starting in kindergarten. Our kindergartners are now coding. So they see their peers in a different light. And we've also are starting a family project night this year. So we're inviting all of the families to come and be involved in these activities. And we're excited. We've created a makers team. So part of our budget is set aside for our team to meet and create all of these activities and themes that they share with all the teachers. And Andrew's going to tell you what our team has been working on.
Oh, I thought you were going to completely steal my thunder. Okay. Do you want, oh, no, I feel like you made that sound difficult. Okay. That's my first time at the board. I'm really excited to be here. Okay. So our journey at MP Brown began with Genius Hour, and I'll kind of go into these a little bit deeper. The beginning of last year, then we wrote and were awarded the innovation grant at the San Mateo County of Education that really focused on science and math. And then, like Tony described, we were accepted into the Making Spaces partnership. And as Beth was mentioning before, now we're kind of building up capacity within the school to have school-wide activities that are accessible to all students. So we'll start with Genius Hour. Last year, it was, okay, so making, there we go. So making is something that I really believe in, and is something that I used in my classroom when I was teaching kindergarten. We did kind of these design challenges, and so I'd heard of Genius Hour, and Mrs. Kawili over at MP Brown, I had just become the tech integration specialist there. Did I do that? Okay. Is this, okay, thanks. So I just become the tech integration specialist there, and I'd mentioned to Beth how I was really interested in making, how it's really engaging and really great for students and progress. And she had mentioned that Ms. Kawili was looking to do a Genius Hour. And if you're not familiar with Genius Hour, it's based on the Google's 20% time, where Google employees do like 80% of their job and then 20% of a passion project. And so that 20% passion project is what Genius Hour is based on. So the students find something that they're passionate about, find something that's interesting, so it becomes like an authentic task to them. And so we just kind of guide them and help them figure out what kind of question do they have in terms of that passion. And then we try to either construct a solution to that problem or just give them time to explore that passion further. So that kind of presented itself in a number of ways. Through designing, we had students coding using Scratch, if you're familiar with that, which is out of the MIT Media Lab. They also constructed out of cardboard, they did painting, did a number of things. And I feel like there were a bunch of outcomes that were super positive. The one that struck me the most was when Ms. Baroni came back to me after seeing, they had this kind of day where they were showing off all their projects. And Tony came back to me and she was like, it's amazing. I can't tell, because that class has special ed students in it. She came, she's like, I have no idea which students were the special ed students. She's like, it really leveled the playing field. It made it so they could really build on their strengths and their skills. And it was a really powerful moment for me that was like, wow, this is really worth it. Yeah. So we'll go to the next slide. So from the Genius Hour, we moved on, and Mr. Vidalis had sent out a reminder email about the innovation grant, and I brought that to the 4th and 5th grade teams at MP Brown. They were willing to write that grant together, and so we wrote a grant for a STEM makerspace cart, and this is kind of where our makerspace, actual space, began. So the idea was that it would be mobile. It doesn't look like a lot right there. It looks pretty messy and is not super ornate, but it has some really cool stuff that made a pretty great difference with the students. So a few of the things, it was a $5,000 grant, which was amazing. They were up to $5,000. I think we spent every dollar that we could. So we purchased a bunch of items. So a green screen, so kids could be digitally making and making videos, learning how to green screen, understanding that process with some iPads that we already had. Then to the left, you can see Makey Makey, which is like if students have coded a video game or coded something on the computer, they can then make their own controller out of everyday objects that conduct electricity. So you're hitting a lot of points there. Like, not only is it coding, it's also physical making, and then understanding how electricity and circuits work, which is pretty cool. Then we can see Make Do, which is about building with cardboard, because cardboard in the making world is like the best thing ever. It's incredible just because there's so much of it, especially in our district. And these little screws can make it into anything that the kids can really imagine. And then, like we were talking about before, the Spheros in the top right so have you guys seen BB-8 from Star Wars? Same company. makes these little spheros, except this is like the education version. So it's clear so students can see the inside and what's going on inside. And then they're also programmable. You can also just drive them around because they're super fun. But then you can, so it's basically like block coding. It's also accessible for like kindergartners, which is great because you can just draw what code you want it to do. Underneath that was some Lego robotics. And then I wasn't actually going to mention the 3D printer and all of my failures. It was finally a success. Okay, she called it success, but I printed out this elephant and its legs wouldn't move, and that's what it was supposed to do. So it was still a failure, but I just gave up on that. It was good enough. But that being said, the kids were able to go onto the Chromebooks, which I already had, access this free 3D CAD software that would then let them create these different files and print them out. So they either made them from their own like imaginations, or they could find already made STL files and then kind of remix those for their purposes, which is really cool. Okay. Okay. So the Making Spaces partnership, again, it wasn't really giving us money. It was giving us the vision to figure out what our schools needed. Mr. Koo, I think you were one of the first people to donate at MP Brown. We still appreciate that. And so we had this lofty goal of $10,000. What we're finding from the Making Spaces partnership is that it wasn't really about the money. It was about the kind of guidance with the vision that we wanted to take our maker space into. So the county also provided some professional development, which was good. Okay, and that really led us to this, because although we didn't get a lot of money from that, and that's fine, we have Ms. Goff, who was willing to put aside a large amount, like a decent amount of money for us to expand our makerspace, which was really wonderful. So we have this team that we all meet every month. We take a full day to meet. We come up with a bunch of accessible activities. So that's activities for kindergarten through 5th grade. And also that are accessible to our special ed students at the school. And it's also theme driven. So this month, I think we're doing wearable art. We're gonna make some like light up cuff things and a number of different things, some weavings involved, which I'm very excited about. That in January, we actually did just like building or construction. So they were making these towers, they were making, we connected it to literature. So we were reading books about the Big Bad Wolf, and the kids were trying to make different houses that wouldn't get blown over by the Big Bad Wolf, which was actually a hair dryer, but it works. And then moving forward, we're gonna have one for Read Across America. So in March, we'll do all Dr. Seuss themed making activities, which will be really, really engaging. Okay. Oh, quick, we're running out of time. Okay, TRP, we started with lunch making, then we did the Making Spaces partnership as well. We made a makerspace class, which was really great, and then we had an after-school club formed. So lunchtime making, Ms. Barros, the librarian there, who is amazing and also teaching the class, used some of her funds to purchase some items and then just had kids try them out to see if this is something that we really liked and want to move forward with. Our Making Spaces partnership over there. Thank you again, Mr. Koo, for your early donation. So we did okay. If you feel like donating, that site is on your slides, and you can always donate to us. But again, it was more about building a vision for where our makerspace was going to be at TRP. And these are some pictures from our makerspace class. Going into it, Ms. Barros became, she's the librarian, and she was the makerspace teacher. And going into it was pretty intimidating. At the School to Home conference last year, we met a representative from Mouse Squad. And so they have this whole curriculum online that goes into like, basically STEM-based, mostly electronics and coding. But we were able to take that curriculum and kind of give some guidance to where we wanted to bring our makerspace class. So if you see the middle picture and the top right picture, they also took the students to Discovery Day at AT&T Park, where they got to experience a bunch of different making opportunities. And then we've also done some paper circuits on the left, which was pretty cool. And to the right, the kids are actually making, so they're not only coding there, so that's all JavaScript. Some in blocks, some kids are actually typing it themselves. And it's mostly 3 or 4 lines of code that they're just repeating through it, but they're making an app that you could actually use on your phone. And so they're doing that. So it's not just like this is coding, but it's also this is how you design an app, and what is your user going to think about it, and how are they going to go back and use it, and what kind of feedback are you going to get, and how can you iterate on your design. So there are some pretty exciting things happening there. So an after-school club started, also Miss Barros. So the one that they did earlier was video game design, and that's on the left. One of the students actually made that game. And then on the right, oh, it's not animated. It's okay. It was moving before, but that's our 3D printer printing a design that one of the kids made. Oh, that's disappointing. It's okay. But the activity itself is going to be great. That's happening after February break. Yes. Okay, and
So now I'd like to introduce Justine Kay. Ben Franklin was not part of the partnership, and the success of Ben Franklin has been in large part to the work Justine has done building their maker program at Ben Franklin.
Thank you for having me. It's also my first time here. So talking about Ben, when Andrew was talking, it made me think of a book we're reading in our book club right now, which is called Cardboard. And it's by Doug Ten-Nepal, and it's about this kid, and his dad is having a hard time out of a job, and he can't give his kid a present for his birthday, but he goes to this guy, gets a piece of cardboard, brings it home, gives it to his kid, here's your present. The kid at first was like, what, Dad, piece of cardboard, is there anything inside? No, that's all. And so the kid then creates something out of the cardboard, and he creates a boxer out of the cardboard box, and that boxer comes to life. So keeping in that vision of creation and problem solving, that's what Ben Franklin, we are trying to do as well. We started at lunchtime having different activities for kids. All the middle schools have 4th and 5th period lunch open for the kids. So we started by just having Legos out, having cardboard, students could create things. We did things like a spaghetti and marshmallow challenge, who could create the tallest tower. And then once we began doing that, the kids were so excited. There were lines to get into the library. Going on to our library makerspace station. So very low funded, just sending out emails to parents and the staff, do you have anything to donate? I did attend some San Mateo County development for makerspace and learned about Little Bit kits, and we invested in those. And as you can see, we did some holiday crafts. We did candy catapults using things like clothespins and popsicle sticks and spoons, and it's been a lot of fun. Maker Monday, so this is something that the librarian before me started, and when I entered the school library, I wanted to continue it. So every Monday, we have a different maker activity. And on the left, you can see we created flashlights out of popsicle sticks, copper tape, and an LED light. And then on the right, we created clay animation movies. So they created their own clay figures, and then we used stop animation software on the iPads and the Chromebooks to create movies. And lastly, we are lucky to have a math teacher, Ms. Cummings, who started a STEM class. And these are some pictures of students working with the Little Bit kits and using Scratch to code. And also we have an advanced computers class. We're also using the Mouse Squad curriculum, and we're turning that into a form of students going and fixing problems for teachers that have to do with technology, so taking it school-wide. And that's Ben Franklin. More to come. Thank you.
Thank you. So just quickly to wrap up, what we're looking forward to moving forward is to just continue to refine and grow the current makerspace programs and look for ways we can have equitable access to all the students. As we move forward with our NGSS adoption and computer science standards, which will be coming out in July of 2019, just thinking about how to continue to align our makerspace curriculum to that, and then considering taking these great models that we already have set up and expanding them to other schools. Thank you. Any questions?
Do you have any questions?
Yeah, I'll go first. First of all, thanks for this presentation, and this is a great example of making learning meaningful, and also keeping the students engaged. I think you kind of answered my question before I asked it, which is how do the students and when do they access the makerspace? So I heard lunchtime and after school. Are there any other times?
So it's different at each school. MP Brown has really set it up so every student has a making experience. So when Andrew talked about every month they have a different theme, and so every teacher will have a time where they go in the library and they have access to the equipment, so every student at MP Brown. At the middle school, those programs are still growing, so it is an elective at this point, lunchtime and after-school programs.
Okay, yep. That was one of my questions. Was it an elective?
Yeah.
So is it part of the core curriculum in any of the schools?
At this point, no.
Okay. So that's a good goal, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, it really does dovetail with the work we're doing in NGSS, so
Yep.
we'll work on aligning those in the next couple of years.
Are the adults that are in the makerspace with them, are they teachers or paraprofessionals or, well, I heard the librarian is in there, right? So who's actually in there with the students? Are there contractors or?
It's both. It's like MP Brown, it's the classroom teacher, it's their library technician, also helps just kind of support the space. At the middle schools, it's taught by the librarians. There's a math teacher, there's a computer science teacher who are involved in teaching them.
Okay. And I think those are most of the questions. Is there anything else that we can do as a board or that you would like us to do to support this program?
Well, I feel like you're always so supportive, and again, this partnership started out as crowdfunding, but throughout the county, we're finding no one's really had success with that. So we're just fortunate that the schools have been able to just use the funds that they have and just allocate in different ways. So we've been able to make it happen. So that's been great.
Okay, thank you.
So I guess I was going to ask, through all this process of learning, you're watching the students do things, but how do you actually evaluate that they're all absorbing it?
Oh, that's a great question.
How do you evaluate that? Is there like a test of some sort? Or?
There's not a test. A big part of making what they say is to not forget to close the loop and have that opportunity for that showcase. So, for example, with that Genius Hour, after you go through that time developing, there's always a place for them to share what they did. And so they have that opportunity of saying, this is what I did. But I think the biggest piece is they talk about their process just as much as they talk about their product. And they'll tell you how they arrived at what they arrived at. But we don't have a formal evaluation. In the middle schools where it's an elective, I know with like the units, they definitely had, rubrics that assessed their ability to create the online games, create the physical game. So kind of typical of any other class where they're developing projects.
So that leads me to think, is that improving their grades?
For those elective classes, it did.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't believe it's graded at the elementary school.
Well, it shows in the elementary school like their engagement and the fact that they're looking into interests that they may not have been engaged in before, so they're actively pulling out books and having conversations about what they're learning. And those are things that weren't happening before. I mean, I'm sure that what we'll see in, hopefully this spring and going into next spring is that our test scores will go up because they have the perseverance to problem solve.
Yeah, so I just want to make sure there's a way that we accumulate that information so that we know that it's really working rather than just going, that we see the end product. So, thank you.
I also want to just reiterate what Ms. Brizuela is saying right now, because when I saw your slide that said that one of the goals was providing access to effective, equitable, and efficient use of technology, I immediately thought about how do we track that as well, especially if we're making that a goal. So, I mean, we have the, I guess, anecdotal evidence, but it would be nice to actually have data on this.
Well, so each time they accomplish something, there's some type of recognition or acknowledgement that they really know they got it and that we know that they've gotten it. That's all. Some way of evaluating it. But thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. I really enjoyed it. Seeing all the different stuff that each of the different schools offer for Makerspace is amazing. I had a question. I wrote a note down. Ms. Goff, you mentioned family project nights. Are those, can we stop by and take a look at them? When is it?
If you come and visit us on our Film Institute Day, I will happily take you over and show you our makerspace.
Cool.
In our library.
No, but also what you just said about when they have that at night with the parents.
Yes, when we do our family, it'll
Yeah,
be in
invite
April.
us.
Yes, absolutely.
You'll put that in the district-wide calendar, school activities calendar, yes.
That's right. We got the calendar.
I also have a question too. So we have makerspaces at 3 schools. How do we make it possible for every school, I guess? Or is that a grant? Is that the board has to kind of prioritize that? Is there a best approach for that?
You know, makerspace is not something we can direct and expect. It's something that has to be born at the site. And I think by, seeking different opportunities to showcase what other schools are doing, naturally, I think somebody at the school site will say, I would like to bring that here, put me in charge of the team, we can work on that. And I think that's our approach to it. There's already so much that's already top down that this is one opportunity that we say organically grow something from the roots. So.
Well, that was actually what I was going to ask about, so my questions have been answered, thanks to all the rest of you. And thank you very much for the report.
And I think, we have 3 schools highlighted today. I think there are many other schools who are doing things and playing around with this in their own way that makes sense for them and their school site, so.
Thank you. Commend everyone involved. I think my biggest aha and something I embraced during the presentation was that piece of inclusion. I really loved hearing about leveling playing field. I always talk about being a mother, a parent of a special needs child, and to hear that opportunity is, one, accessible to all, but then to see it happen, that's huge. That's huge, because that is what sets us apart, and it speaks to what we've seen happen in Florida. It's that piece that's missing for a lot of our kids. So when we're able to create those spaces to level the playing field and be inclusive and make everyone feel like it's an equitable process, that's what those are things that aren't really always part of the academic piece, but those are the things that create that change and that transformation. So to hear that that's happening through this, I mean, for me, it was just, everything else, of course, is great, but for me, that inclusion piece is huge. And I think it's huge for just not even special ed, but a lot of our students and families who have those children and students are in between. They can't make that connection. But it's Makerspace, other projects that we have going on, and teachers and staff that are dedicated to making these things happen. This is a great testament that money doesn't always make things happen. It continues to be the heart and the motivation that comes from the site. And I love, as Superintendent Vidalis had pointed out, from the root. It's not top down. So I don't doubt that this is going to resonate to other schools, and that that's what JESC continues to do. So thank you for sharing your presentation. And I love that we're able to promote the GoFundMe. I know that crowdfunding hasn't always been successful, but I think that's something that as a board we can at least, one, if we can contribute, but if not, share. There may be a way to get some traction with that. So thank you.
Great, thank you. We appreciate that.
So we are now moving on to our business and our financial procedures. And I believe we are going to be discussing our parcel tax expenditure update from Ms. Kessler.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So this is our first year with the parcel tax. It was very exciting, and we've received some of our revenues. So,
I was just saying, we need our tech people.
sabotage, I know it. We've received some of our revenues, more than half, and probably because a lot of people were trying to pay their second half of their taxes ahead of time last year. And so the rest of it will come in. We did have a lot of seniors come in and file for their exemption, so we're not exactly sure what we're going to be getting yet. But we do know what the budget is for it, what we've got planned. And so the first slide that I want to go over, this is the actual part of the ballot language and the resolution that you passed in 2016. Section 2. These are all the different areas, 1 through 7. Those numbers that were added by me, where we're going to spend the funds. And I'm going to show you the next slide, which is going to show us where we've spent those funds. They'll all be kind of coded, so you can kind of go back and forth between the two. Well, actually, you don't even have to, because I think I labeled it on the next page. So anyway, this is the language, ballot language. This is where we've budgeted and where we've spent. So as you can see over here, these coincide with the front page, and I've restated what those actually are, and maybe a little bit shorter, and how we're spending it. So here, number 4, attract and retain teachers. So that you know, this column here is what you approved last March. The following column is the current budget. So the budget's a little bit different because we're just trying to determine what the costs will be. Not much different, but a little bit. And then what we've actually spent to date and what is encumbered to date, and then the remaining balance. Now this remaining balance, I want to let you know, we're not through the year yet. So if it hasn't been encumbered or spent yet, then it's going to be here. So these amounts can still be spent, and some of them will, and some of them won't. And then whatever doesn't, we'll be able to carry over next year. This is a good year to have that because, again, this is our first year. We don't know exactly how much money we're going to be getting. So it's kind of good to see where we're going and also to develop the programs that we are actually doing. First, we have beginning teacher salaries, beginning teacher support, should I say. And so this is kind of like the BITSA program that we were doing before. And this one has quite a large balance at the end, and that's really because I think the educator effectiveness is, we're finishing up spending that money. This will be the last year that we have that. It will be gone, and so we'll need to support it from this program here. And then Professional Development Day, one of the institute days, was charged here. And then under supporting school libraries, well, 2 librarians. We have 2 more librarians this year that are being supported by that. And then enhancing the music, we have 1 music teacher that's being paid through that, and then supporting after-school programs. Now, this is really nice because not all of our schools get after-school programs. So what we wanted to do, what you wanted to do, is to support it at the schools that do not get the program otherwise, as well as some of the schools who don't get it as much as as our ACES programs would give. So this is so that we could support up to 50 students in each of these schools. So we've got Ben Franklin and TRP, which they have a little bit less because they didn't have to have all 50 supported. Only some of them needed support. They already had some programs. And then, of course, Fernando, Tobias, Danny Webster, Thomas Edison as well. And so they all receive funds to support after-school programs, and they're using that. And then also the Summer Enrichment Program, which we had last summer. And as you know, it was grades 3 through 5. Thomas Edison and Fernando were there. And then the Cinema Project, which you had a great presentation last spring on that. And so that's supporting that as well. And then down here, the schools are receiving $30 per student per ADA from the previous year. And so that's supporting all these different areas. And those are approved as they come through Mrs. McCulloch, as to whether they support the programs that we want them to support. So again, this is all in accordance with the ballot language and in accordance with what you approved last year what the budget actually ended up being, which is very close, and our expenditures and our remaining balance at this point, which is just February. We have some months to go. And any questions?
Yes. So, number 2 in the ballot language, expand hands-on science learning opportunities. I
Right.
just heard about
Well,
makerspace.
Not everything. We don't have enough money for everything we want to do. But clearly there seems to be some hands-on science that you just heard about,
Right.
which didn't require a whole lot of money, which is a
Right.
good thing. And of course, if we have more funds, or in the future we get more, or some of these other things can be picked up elsewhere, or we get the adequate funding from the state, then we would be able to enrich in other ways. But we do have to make choices.
Yeah, I think it is largely part of what schools can choose to do their money with. It says protect science programs, but I think it's also enhance as well. So
I guess I could have put 2 down
Yeah,
there too.
yeah.
So I'll revise it and I'll add 2 here.
So, my question is, number 6, enhance art and music classes. And it says, I guess you're adding 1 music teacher? Is it an addition or just filling a slot?
Actually,
I can answer that. It is an extra music teacher. It allows the middle schools to offer four full periods of music instruction at middle school level instead of 3, and then also the middle school students at FDR get band and orchestra instruction as well. So.
Okay, so what happened to art? It's listed, but I don't see anything about that.
Yeah, so this language allows us to spend in those areas, doesn't require us to. So the school sites have enhanced art and music class. They get money at the local level, and many of them partner with art organizations to bring art instruction into their schools.
So everybody's getting it?
Every school chooses how they spend their money. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Because, I mean, there are students that art is really big for them, and I like to see them get the same opportunity to be creative and be better at that. So I just thought it stood out like it wasn't getting anything, even though it's saying to enhance it. Okay.
Well, that makes me think, are there any school sites that are not taking advantage of these opportunities?
I believe every school site is using their funds as best that they can. Like you said, this is the first year, so in the first year you sort of build up the program, and like Ms. Kessler mentioned, we still don't know what our total is going to be. We won't know until June when we get the second installment, and then from there we can start to, if it's more than what we anticipated, redistribute, and if it's less, we'd have to consider where we need to reduce.
The only reason I'm questioning it and concerned is that one time we had probably the best art program in the whole city, I mean, everywhere, and at other districts, and we were highlighted at the CSVA conference, that our artwork was the best anywhere. And we just don't have that quality of instruction for that, because we don't have the art resource teachers around. So I'm just wondering, when can we also try to build that up as well?
We will look for opportunities for that, and I think right now the way schools are building that is by working with art organizations to bring artists into the school to work around 6-week, 8-week periods at all their grade levels. So, but we will look for other opportunities to expand that. Yeah, we have a limited amount of money, and this is how the board is determined to spread it.
Just asking, 'cause it's there. Maybe
Also,
it made me think about it.
Recently, in the last few weeks, I've been working with Ms. McKay Thomas at Tobias, and they are doing an after-school program, which is a mural design and painting program where the kids are involved in that. So that is a clear use of funds where it's after-school program, but also being used for art. So, and it contract is together, and very excited to see what ends up being done. But they're very excited about it. And so that's where something has been used by the school side in a combination. So again, it's an after-school program, but in their case, there's a lot of art in that. And again, it's a finite amount of money, and some choices had to be made.
Yeah.
And you did. You made these choices last year.
Yep.
Comments or questions? I think I wanted to say that with the new website coming up, I think this is a great opportunity for some of these pieces to be highlighted in a collective effort, because it seems like all those buttons at the bottom, which I was excited to see all the schools, I think it'll allow the opportunity to highlight these, because at least when we're talking about the things about enhancing art and music or whatever's happening after school and summer school, it's kind of hard to picture what's going on. It would be nice to know about it. I mean, but I'm thinking the website, when schools are highlighting what they're doing, that would be a good opportunity for us to be able to see those things happening through the website.
And maybe encourage others to want to do the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, it seems that that's what will be happening.
Yeah, good idea.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Kessler. So I know you have another update for us.
The report, don't sit down yet.
Oh, no. I'm next.
You're next. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're more than halfway through the 17-18 year, and so business often is working in the year before or the year when we're closing. We're working in the previous year. When we're trying to build a budget, we're working in the next year, and so sometimes we're actually working in the year that we're in. So in January, the governor proposed his budget for the 2018-19 year, and of course that includes education. Oops, sorry. Okay. So this slide just has a lot about the federal, the U.S. economy and politics, and I'll let you go through this on your own if you'd like some information. But basically, the economy is strong at this time, but there's a lot of uncertainty, as you can imagine. And with the state economy and politics as well, the state is strong, as Dr. Douglas had mentioned. We're the 6th largest economy in the world. And the only thing I really want to point out here is NAFTA and how important NAFTA is to California. Mexico is California's biggest trading partner, followed by Canada, our 2 NAFTA partners. And 4.4 million jobs in California are associated with NAFTA. But let's get to the state budget for education. So we're all familiar with Prop 98, which has amended it was amended to the Constitution, state constitution, that gives us a minimum guarantee for education. And that is exactly what we get, the minimum. And the Prop 98 model has become a maintenance model rather than being a growth model. And that resolution that you passed today is saying, let's make it a growth model. We don't want to just maintain what we've been doing, maintain our low level of funding, because that's what it is. So Prop 98 for next year is estimated to be $78.3 billion. Of that, it's $3.8 billion is really new funds, and that's coming from adjusting this year's. So we're not getting one-time funds for this year, but adjusting this year's by $700 million. So 17-18 guarantee is adjusted, and then the 18-19 amount will go up by 3.1 million. That's above the adjusted 17-18. So combined, it's $3.8 billion. And we're in a test 3 year. Basically what a test 3 year means is that we're not going to get all the money we're due. That's what they do. So $98 million we're not getting. and they'll add that to the maintenance factor. They'll owe us that in the future. But they won't owe, if they don't pay it for 5 years, it's not going to be 5 times $320 million. It'll be 1 time $320 million will bring us up to that. But they don't pay us back for what we've lost. So how are these funds going to be used? Well, the biggest thing is $3 billion of it's going to be used to fully fund what he proposes. The legislature has to pass something still. He proposes to use $3 billion to 100% fully fund the LCFF gap. Okay? So if that happens, we will be brought up to the 2007-8 funding level, adjusted for COLA every year. Plus we do get more funds because of the S&C grant, because of our high free and reduced student and EL students. So yeah, so we'll be brought up, made whole from 10 years ago. $1.8 billion will be used for one-time funds. And what that translates to is $295 per ADA, and for our district, that would be $1,725,000 approximately of one-time funds in 2018-19. Now, again, those are one-time funds, so we can't move those forward. And then $134 million of the amount will be used to fund COLA for some other categorical programs. The rest really doesn't affect us directly. It's education, but it's not affecting Jefferson directly. What's not in his proposal is, again, increasing the funding level, the base funding level of LCFF. It's only paying it up to, for the COLA, and then the 100% of the gap. It's not increasing the base itself. And so that's what you, again, in your resolution, what you're asking for is increase the base. We need that. And also, again, STRS and PERS, the increased STRS and PERS have not been addressed. And again, when I talk about saying we're back at 2007-8 levels, adjusted for COLA, it's adjusted for COLA. It has not been adjusted for the additional STRS and PERS that we've been paying. So, and as we continue to pay that more, that would eat up all the COLA that has been adjusted for. So, and then they have not taken into consideration any of the new federal tax laws that were put into place, or any of the federal health care programs that may affect the state. If the federal government reduces contributions to states and we maintain our Cover California, that'll come out of the state budget and will likely reduce anything that they could give us. So this is just a slide that I put in here every time. So if anybody feels like determining what kind of money we'd be getting, you could just use this little formula and figure out what we'd be getting from the LCFF. But I like to put it here because I want to just remind everybody there's base money, there's supplemental and concentration grant money, and then there's these additional funds that never grow. They'll always be the same. So this is something that next year, if we have 100% funding, we won't be having this slide anymore because the slide will be gone. This slide talks about the gap. And there won't be a gap if we have 100% funding. And so this is basically our base grant level, our supplemental and concentration grant. This is what our estimate for next year would be. And this would be our entitlement for 18-19. This is what we're getting this year. So the difference is basically $3.2 million. And what we're getting next year is the full amount, provided the governor's proposal goes through. And I think the 100% funding will go through. So we will fund hopefully have the entire gap funded, and so we will be getting our entitlement amount. And again, that will only be growing in the future by COLA unless something changes. So this slide is really the meat and potatoes slide. This has got most of the important information for us on it. And what's really happening with the district and funding. I think our biggest thing right now is our declining enrollment. In 15-16, enrollment went down into 16-17 by 61 students. And then 17-18, it's gone down again by 179 students. It's a combined decrease of 240 students. We have 1 year declining enrollment protection each year, so when we went down in this year, we still got paid for these 61 students. And this current year, we are not getting for the 61, but this current year we are getting for the 179. And next year, we won't get for either of those. So if we maintain the same enrollment level, we'll lose all the declining enrollment protection. If it goes down, it'll get worse. But if it goes up, we don't have to wait a year to get those funds. We'll get them immediately, and then we'll have declining enrollment protection again for another year later on. Anyway, as you know, enrollment translates into ADA, and we have a 96.88% attendance rate. So these are the amounts that we'd actually be losing from our, in that formula that I showed you, you take away like 233 students from that. What does that translate into dollars? What do these students, just our declining enrollment students, translate into? Well, they're not our students anymore, right? We don't have them. So the lack of these students, what does that translate to in money? And so for this, for 16-17, well actually for 17-18, I have it under 16-17 up here because that's these 61 kids. We lost them in 16-17, we don't have them anymore, so after 1 year of declining enrollment protection in 17-18, so this year we lost $0.6 million. Again, this 179 students, which translate to 174 in ADA, the current year we're getting the money for them. Next year we will lose $1.7 million because they won't be here. We don't have them. These combined is $2.3 million lost. And when it's not a one-time loss, it's an ongoing loss. So they build upon each other. So if we were to maintain the status quo of this year, we were able to just hold on to that, not gain or lose, just from that alone, every year out, but not adjusted for COLA yet, we would lose $2.3 million. So our enrollment is very important. The good news is that our unduplicated percent is up. It was at 70.1%, and now it's at 74.09%. Now, that's what that was last year, that's what it is this year, but we take a 3-year average. So we don't get the funds immediately. That if it goes up, it takes 3 years average, down 3 years average. So, but that does, it does increase our S&C grant funds. And what's important here is it's not that we have more poor students than we had before. And because we don't want poor students, we want everybody to have enough funds. But what's happened is there was a new way through Medicaid direct certification. And so we're capturing families that did not want to apply for free and reduced for whatever reason. We're able to capture those and include them in our unduplicated count, which increases our percent. So for 17-18, the current year, we get $184,000 more. 18-19, 852. That is an 8, not a 6, right? I'm kind of blurry for me. I can't see it. 19-20, $1.3 million, and 2021, $1.4 million. That's based on. It grows because it's not working all the time, is it? Okay, all right.
It's on,
It grows because the 3-year average is growing because we continue to use this on the out years. We're assuming we'll be able to maintain that. It's our best guess. And so by this year here, all 3 years would have had the 74.09, so we'd be getting S&C grant based on that number. And so we have $1.4 million more money, and that would be ongoing, plus adjusted for inflation. So that's good news, and that helps us mitigate some of the declining enrollment loss, but of course we want to have more enrollment. And then the one-time funds, which is a wild card every year. You can see here, when we started getting the one-time funds, we had 400,000, then 3.2 million, then 1.3 million, then 900,000, and next year is 1.7 million. So it just goes up and down. We don't know what we're going to get. We can't count on it. We'd like it to just simply be folded into the base grant, the base level, so and so we can count on it because we can't budget it for out years. So that's the thing, is we can't budget it for out years. And then what's really important here is in the 1920 year, which is part of our multi-year projection, we have to, in order to make our 3% reserve for economic uncertainty, we have to reduce our expenditures and or increase our revenues by $2.6 million. So the different ways of doing that are, one, our current budget. We usually have a conservative budget where we're budgeting more expenditures than we actually will spend. School sites will not spend all their funds and such. And so there will be carryovers that if we don't, the ones that we don't give back to the school sites in the following year will go to our fund balance and will also reduce our expenditures, right? So we have that. We also, just simply our unspent budget. There's also a possibility of future one-time funds because, as I said, the one-time funds can only be counted in the year that we're budgeting for if they say we're likely to get them. And then the third way is to reduce some expenditures, and of course, hopefully maybe there's other revenues. So this is what it looks like, and I know it's kind of hard to see because there's a lot of information on one slide. Again, this is based on a increased unduplicated account and 100% gap funding, and there is included in here, in this last column here, the 2021 actually, here, is $2.6 million of reduced expenditures. They're not earmarked for anything. So what I want you to pay attention to here is this line here, because this is what said, this is deficit spending. So each of these years, and the current year, we're deficit spending by nearly $4 million. It won't be quite that high because we won't spend everything, but we will be deficit spending this year. And then the following years, $1.6 million, $3.5 million, and this $1.1 million is already after $2.6 million in decreased expenditures. So if you added that back in, it would be $3.7 million of deficit spending. So just because we don't have to cut yet for a positive certification for our second interim, that doesn't mean we're not deficit spending. What we're doing is we're spending our reserves down. All right, but I am hoping for future one-time funds to come through. And also, this line down here, where we have our reserve for economic uncertainty. For the current year, we're at 5%. We have to drop it down to 3% in all of these years in order to meet it. I mean, we won't have 5% reserve. We'll only have 3%. So this is what our fund balance will look like. And again, this last year here has a $2.6 million reduction in expenditures. If this didn't happen, if this $2.6 million didn't happen, this is where our fund balance would be. It would be negative. We would have a negative $631,000 of fund balance in our general fund unrestricted. So I still, if you recall, the first interim, I provided this slide, this exact slide from the first interim that shows the different scenarios of, you know, where we could be, where we were for first interim, what happens when we add the, you know, the negotiated salaries and benefits and the increased S&C grant funds, what happens if we have the 100% gap funding and the one-time funds. And if you recall, I said we would be somewhere, I believed we would be somewhere between here and here, and we are. We couldn't be down here because one-time funds are one-time, so we can't, you know, do that in the future. So I got this slide, and I've adjusted it for where we are with the governor's budget proposal. So like I said, we're not here, we're not here, we're not here. We're down here because we have the 100% gap funding, and instead of $2.6 million in one-time funds, would be at $1.7 million of one-time funds. And so instead of $4 million of cuts that we would need in the 2021 year, it's $2.6 million cut. But again, this is, we're still deficit spending after the cuts by 1.1 million. And even though here we don't need to have any cuts, we're deficit spending by 3.5 million. Now, if we did get the one-time funds, if the $1.7 million was ongoing, it would reduce our deficit spending. Instead of 3.5 million, it would go down to 1.8, and instead of 1.1 with the 2.6, this is really like 3.7. It would go down to 2.1. But as you see, even with one-time funds in the future at the same level that we hope to get them next year, we would still be deficit spending. We will still meet our reserve requirements, but we would still be deficit spending. So PERS and STRS, I never want to stop showing you this because it's more money every year, and this is just compared to the future years compared to this year, how much more money we'd be spending than we are spending in this year for PERS and STRS. And next year, that's almost $1 million more than this current year. And then the following year, getting closer to $2 million more. And then once we hit here, this is then STRS is at the highest level in 2020-21. So this percent doesn't grow anymore, but the PERS continues to grow. Now, one bit of good news is that the last time we spoke, this is what the PERS was going to, this was the percentage of PERS. It topped out at 28.2%. Now it's going to top out at 25.1%. So that's a 3% savings for us, which is actually, you know, a lot for the future. Next steps, well, the LCAP is being put together. Stakeholders are going to be sharing their thoughts with us in the spring. And then the LCAP will have to be adopted before the budget is adopted, because the budget has to follow the LCAP. And then the budget will need to be adopted by our board, by all of you, before the end of this fiscal year, so by June 30th. And then what's included in that budget will be the assumptions of how much in revenues we're going to get and what our expenditures going to be. And then when the state adopts a budget, we will respond to that. We have 45 days to respond, and we will adjust our budget accordingly to the state within 45 days. Questions?
Dr. Douglas, questions?
And I'll be back in a month with the first interim, second interim.
No questions? Thank you.
Well,
Thank you.
actually, I do have one question.
Okay.
Based on the correspondence from Superintendent Vidales and the County Office of Ed strongly talking about our deficit spending. Does that change at all what you're going to present to us the next time?
Well, they had $3.6 million plus the extra million, and we have $2.6 million plus the extra million. The reason why there's this extra million that they're adding in there is because even though we have this reserve for textbooks, and we are purchasing textbooks, and so we're taking $1 million from the reserve, and we're bringing it in to help purchase those textbooks, that money is considered deficit spending because it's not new money. So deficit spending is whatever revenues we receive this year compared to the expenditures we have this year. And those revenues, they're not revenues, they're fund balance. It's just that they've been designated for the purpose of supporting textbooks.
So you're saying that
it will look a little bit better.
That statement is mainly based on that $1 million difference?
Yeah, well, there's twice that. $1 million was used twice, and they're two different things. I mean, our deficit spending is going down by $1 million. That other $1 million is still there, though. But the thing is, as well, is that what the county is looking at is they're looking at something that does not have any. Well, first off, that was before we had 100% LCFF gap funding, because the first interim we did not have 100% gap funding. Mm-hmm. That was included in the budget. We will make the second interim with 100% gap funding. Will we get it? We hope so. But we do have to kind of go by what the governor's saying now. So they didn't have that, so that made it better. They also, we have that possibility of one-time funds in the future. And we see that's on there. It won't be included in the second interim because we can't. Only next year's one-time funds, but not the following years. And of course, we're hoping that happens. So, yeah, it's.
That's true, but aren't they saying though? I mean, they made note of that they want us to maintain a healthy reserve as well.
Yeah,
so it wasn't
they do.
just about that
The adequate reserve that they're speaking of is a 3%, and they're recognizing that. With our deficit spending, eventually we will run out of that. They know we have a good fund balance to carry us for a period of time, but they also know with deficit spending, eventually you run out of that fund balance. And so that's what they're referring to.
Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to certificated personnel. The administration recommends approval of the following retirement requests and appropriate resolutions to be prepared, commending them for their years of service with the district. Janet Giannini, first grade teacher at FDR.
And she's here.
Thank you for your service. And Ms. Carla Walden at Garden Village. So,
I will make the motion that we approve. Well, maybe. That we approve the retirement requests of Janet Giannini, first grade teacher from FDR, effective June 16th, 2018, and Carla Walden, Garden Village, effective also June 16th, and that appropriate resolutions be prepared commending them for their years of service to the district. And I want to add my thanks to that, and I hope you enjoy retirement like crazy.
Yes.
Second.
Do you have a second? Do we have roll call? Or is it by aye? Okay, everyone in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you again for your service. Thank you.
I want to thank her as well personally. Thank you, Janet.
Okay, hiring of certificated personnel. The administration recommends hiring the following certificated personnel for this school year. John Schiller, temporary status for fourth grade at MP Brown, and Kayla Montiel, also temporary status speech pathologist, which actually became effective the 31st of January. Do we have a motion?
I,
So move.
Second.
was this taken off for a reason?
Yeah. So this, may I explain?
Yes, please.
So I will.
Just wanted to know
Oh,
what
no,
it was.
thank you for the question. This was actually removed because it is a conflict of interest for me. Kayla Montiel is my niece, so I will be recusing myself from the vote.
Okay.
So, yeah.
That's
And
interesting.
I'm excited that she will be able to serve in this capacity. Yeah. So we have a second, and we'd like to ask for a roll call.
Oh, no, voice vote is.
Do we have to? Or just, we have to do, I thought this was a roll call, no?
Well, it's a voice, it should be
It's a
voice,
voice?
so we can see that you didn't vote for it.
Okay, we can do a roll call so that way we can demonstrate
More
she's
appropriate,
abstaining.
Mr. Ali,
Aye.
Mrs. Brizwella,
Aye.
Mr. Koo,
Aye.
Dr. Douglas.
Aye.
And Ms. Manufo, the Aigano Ai, she will abstain.
Okay.
Thank you.
Which is appropriate, because that's the only time you should abstain, when it's a conflict of interest.
We have a job description, we're discussing the job descriptions for our school resource coordinator. Mr. Valenti?
Yeah, I have a copy. I don't know if you guys had one or need a copy. Get that going out.
Okay. Thank you. We actually, okay. Both of this is for, oh, okay. This is regarding this previous item.
What's that?
I'm sorry, this one's for certificated personnel.
What I.
Yeah, so it is for G? Is it also for G? Okay, all right, we'll let you. And then I'll.
I was just going to say, and I think some of my partners are coming up to speak with that we had partnered with AFT and our Student Services Department Administration to come up with a job description for our school resource coordinator, and that the district would recommend the approval of the job description. The position was specified in the LCAP as a needed resource. It's a priority for the district, and it'll be funded from supplemental and concentration grants. And then I guess we have some people that are going to talk to it as well.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. So our first speaker card on this item is from Nikki Vigoria.
Victoria.
I'm sorry.
Victoria.
Oh, Victoria. I'm sorry. It's connected there. My apologies, Victoria.
That's all right. Good evening, board members, district leadership, and everyone present tonight. I am Nikki Victoria, your community school organizer for the Mission Corridor Community Schools Network. I'm speaking tonight to address the school resource position for Woodrow Wilson Elementary School. I witnessed the struggle to get this position back on the agenda, and I want to duly acknowledge all the hard work that the district leadership, AFT, and Woodrow staff have done to ensure the success of the community school initiative being led at Woodrow Wilson Elementary School. Having this resource coordinator position at Woodrow allows the community school efforts to really prosper. Earlier this evening, Manufu mentioned projects that start from the root or are site-led, and this community schools project is one of those such projects. It also addresses equity and community engagement. I particularly want to acknowledge the leadership of Brent Valenti, Stephanie Martinez, and Sarah Rich, who made sure that Paul Hagan and I were included in the conversation around the job description. In that room, I saw truly that these individuals prioritized students' best interest in their decision-making because they recognize the importance of labor management partnerships in projects of this magnitude. So I'm very fortunate to work on this project alongside some of the most hardworking individuals, and I appreciate you all for putting your students first and your time for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we have Miss Melinda Dart.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Melinda Dart, still in AFT, still working on community schools. And I want to thank everyone, JESD administrators and board members, for partnering with AFT on this project to create community schools in the district. This job description is a beginning of actually realizing this dream. You know, we've talked about this a bit in the past, but this position is really key because this position allows the school to offer more services to the families and to the students, and to make sure that the people who need it get connected to those services, because this job is the role that takes care of overseeing all of those connections. Several of you mentioned tonight wanting to be able to be more proactive in increasing mental health services and outreach to students and find ways to connect students to more fully engage them with school. Community schools are a vehicle for doing just that, right? They're a way of bringing the community into the school. In our project, there's also a focus on restorative practices, and training is going on even this month for staff to get trained in those practices to further create a climate of fairness and equity at these schools. The project also has an emphasis on labor management partnerships because data shows that the better the communication is between all the staff members at a school, that better communication leads to improved delivery, right, of services, of curriculum, and better outcomes for students. So the community school model does not take the place of full and fair funding of public schools, and I'm well aware of that. However, it is a way to leverage what you have to create excitement and engagement and offer more. And just a reminder, the services are not what you're paying for. Those are brought in by outside organizations. And therefore, you're getting, you're offering more by spending just enough to cover this one position who can orchestrate a community school and connect the services. So once again, thank you for partnering on this, and let's see it happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Paul Hagan? Thank you.
Good evening. I had a few words prepared. I'm going to just ignore them, however. It's going to be a little bit redundant, but I do want to thank the administration for making this commitment, both financially and ideologically. It's been said that it takes a village, and I think that's really what community schools are about. And it's meaningful to me that tonight, when we're all distracted and upset by what's happened in our country again, these acts of violence in our schools are perpetrated by people who we failed. They target schools for a reason, and we can't do it all ourselves. We can't. Our administration, our teachers, we try, but there's forces there that we can't reach, and community schools, I think, are really key to helping us get into the community in ways that will be meaningful. I want to thank Mr. Valenti, Ms. Martinez, again for your support, Nikki, and of course Melinda Dart, who has spearheaded this for the last few years. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. So, thank you, Mr. Valenti. Did you have anything else that you wanted to add? Okay. Do you have any questions?
Well, I had one question. I'm reading this over, and it seems quite in depth, which is great. I do notice that I wanted to ask: is this considered? It says under the principal. So does that mean that it's an employee under the principal going to be
As
guided by
a
that?
certificated position?
Yeah.
It's under it's within the unit, it's a certificated position, the calendar, it's going to be under our teacher, or the counselor calendar, which is a little longer, 5 days, but it's under the supervision of the school, the supervisor of the school, but also there might be further down the line where there'll be district, got stuck on my ring, where there'll be more district projects, but at the school, yes, that would be.
So
the
basically just for that school right there?
Yes.
Now, at this time. But as it can develop later, we can use it as a guide, perhaps to go into other schools as well?
Certainly.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions?
So then the other question is, we have to determine the salary.
Negotiate, sorry, with AFT, the way we're looking at it, because it's on the calendar of the counselors and the, what are called the school support resource teachers, we're working it under that salary scale.
Okay, good.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions from the board? No? Is there, Trustee Ali?
What's the timeline on trying to get this position filled?
About a year ago. No, yeah, ASAP. Basically, yeah, now that it's moving forward, I mean, credential-wise and all that stuff, we'll get it posted after. Hopefully, it'll be something in place, certainly for next year, but the hiring process would start as soon as we can move forward on this end.
Do you already have candidates?
No.
Okay.
Have to advertise for it?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I guess we do step one, step two, step.
Do we have a
It'd be
motion?
nice if we could do it sooner, but we'll see.
Yeah, it would be.
It has to be done decently and in order.
Yeah. Okay, then.
Do we have a
I'd
motion?
like to make a motion that we adopt the salary schedule for school.
Job description.
Job des-
What did I say, salary
You said
schedule?
salary schedule, yeah.
I'm so worried about the money. I want to get the money here. Okay, sorry. I make a motion I should be reading the agenda rather than this thing, but it says, to approve the job description for school resource coordinator as presented.
Second. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Yay.
Yay.
Thank you. Thanks.
We might want to look and see how soon we can get it sort of started, because getting it in so it gets like addressed a little bit, it would be perfect at the beginning of next year.
Yeah, that would be nice.
And also, it's kind of that recruitment season this time of the year.
Yeah. But at least we get something in place.
Yeah, and thank you all again. This is such an important piece of our community and our school district. Thank you all who's been a part of this.
Yeah.
Okay, my favorite part.
We talked about, with Melinda for a long time about community schools.
There's a meeting tomorrow at 3:30.
Where at? JFK? To talk about this type of thing? Or,
Well, it's a
Do we want to?
oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we can-
We're not supposed to talk.
Thank you. Thank you again.
Yeah.
But you could, at the end, make an announcement.
So we are now at one of my favorite parts of tonight's meeting. And thank you, Trustee Koo, for going first while your memory was fresh. But I will, actually, no, we're starting off with our second read, board policies.
Your second favorite part.
Yeah.
Board
This
policies.
is my second favorite thing being on this committee. Board policy and administrative regulations from October 2016. CSBA board policy revisions, our second reading. So opening this up for discussion.
I had no further issues with this one.
I think I have this one. Oh, no, this is 2016? Yeah, okay. Any?
Wait a minute. This is the administrative regulations. Oh, those are the ones from last time too, yeah, no. I have one last time, but it was because it didn't belong there. Okay. No.
Trustee Ali?
No.
Okay, no? Okay, all right.
Then I will make a motion that we approve the October 2016 CSBA Board Policy revisions for the second reading.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Okay, so now we have board policies, administrative regulations for our May 2017 CSBA Board Policy revisions, first reading.
I have one small question, which I hope won't even be you can just answer. For AR 5145.3B, or actually in that whole thing, at the beginning of that AR, this is about, let me just get it up here, it's my thingy is being very slow. This is for, if you actually have page numbers, it's on page 31, 32. It's on the non-discrimination harassment. I noticed that in the place where we filled in our information about who to contact, we have the contact information of the phone number, the address, and the email crossed out. On the next page, there are two places where it refers to people using the email, or that we need to have that email address out there item 2A, it says the name and so we're supposed to post in a prominent place the name and email address of the person.
Yes, so it is still posted in a prominent place. As you noticed in our website, it is on the front page of our website where and how someone can make such a complaint. The reason we stay vague in a board policy is because the person sitting, we don't have like harassment at Jefferson ESD. We don't have that email address, but we could complaints. We could, and but it is. We do update our website. It does need to be posted on our website, and that's where it is on the front page.
I just wanted to check because it looked a little bit weird because it was just, though we were saying, well, we're not going to do the email, and then it's saying, yeah, we have to do the email. So if that's good, then I'm totally good. That was the only thing I saw that looked a little bit weird.
Okay. Are there any other discussion items on this? No? Therefore, do we have a motion?
Go for it, Clayton.
I'll make a motion to approve the first reading of the May 2017 CSBA Board Policy revisions.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. It's one of the most exciting parts of this evening. Reports from board members on professional development at our 2017 CSBA conference. And tonight, we will be hearing from Trustee Ali.
Okay. Thank you. All right. So we went down to the CSBA conference, as everyone knows, and I did not stay in any workshop for the whole time, as usual. I had to bounce around until I could find my comfort zone and also relevant information, and lo and behold, I did find some. I went to the Family Engagement Keys to Unlocking the Achievement Gap workshop, and that's definitely relevant for everything that we were discussing tonight, and I will be highlighting some of what I learned from that workshop. But also want to mention that I did attend the another workshop called the LCAP Toolkit, Promoting Gifted Education through LCAP, and I was planning to email some information to Ms. McCulick from that workshop. But tonight I'll just talk briefly about the Family Engagement workshop, and also give this to Ms. Coveray, and then she can make copies for the rest of the board members.
You can give it to me after.
Okay, give it to Mr. Gonzalez. So Family Engagement Keys to Unlocking the Achievement Gap. It says that family engagement is any way that a child's adult caretaker, meaning biological parents, foster parents, siblings, grandparents, etc., at home, at school, and in the community effectively supports learning and healthy development. And I thought it was good to actually have a definition of family engagement instead of just talking about how we want to have families come to the schools more. We should have a focus on that, which obviously should be learning and healthy development. And they talked about why we need family engagement, and of course we all know why, but it's good to have specifics. The first bullet point is that it's one of the most consistent predictors, the most consistent predictors of children's academic achievement and social adjustment are family expectations of the child's academic attainment and satisfaction with their child's education at school. Also, that the earlier in a child's educational process, parent-family engagement begins, the more powerful the effects. And the third bullet point was, I'll just go to what I highlighted, working directly with children on learning activities at home. So that's the most effective form of family engagement, is actually informing the parents and the families of what the actual curriculum is and giving them some type of opportunity to help their students at home, or at least, I don't know if the parents can always help, but at least they can be aware of what the students are working on. Let's see, family participation in education was twice as predictive of students' academic success as family social economic status. Let me see. Oh, I thought this was important, and it actually made me think about Ms. Brizuela and what she talks about and what she's been saying as long as I've been on the board.
Yeah.
That families need specific information on how to help and what to do. Mm-hmm. So it's not just enough to say, hey, we want you at the school, but we have to give them something concrete to do. There were some surveys that they brought up, it's way back in 2012, but it's still relevant. 72% of principals surveyed in 2012 found it very challenging to engage families and the community. 73% of teachers surveyed found it very challenging. Families express a genuine and deep-seated desire to help their children succeed academically, regardless of differences in socioeconomic status, race, ethnicity, and cultural background. And I thought that was important that was brought up because a lot of times people have stereotypes about which kind of families value education and encourage their children to succeed. And it was good to just see that it doesn't matter. Every parent wants their child to succeed, and that's the way that we should look at the situation as well. Let's see. So those are the highlights. I guess I can mention as well just some of the publications that this information came from. So one was a review of educational research, which is a journal of the American Educational Research Association. As far as research on that shows when families are involved, that students have higher grades, test scores, graduation rates, attendance, motivation, etc., is a study from the National Parent Teacher Association. And then there's another article, A New Generation of Evidence, The Family is Critical to Student Achievement, which is by Ann T. Henderson and Nancy Burla from the Center for Law and Education in Washington, D.C. Let's see. I guess that's the most relevant information that I can share with everyone. And I'm just glad, though, that our school district is still seeking ways to better engage our community and our families to focus on academic achievement, and whatever I can do as an individual and then us as a board to support Ms. Kulik in integrating all of this actually into the LCAP, I think would be great for us to do.
Thank you. I also went to that one, and I thought you touched on a lot of the things that resonated with me as well. And I think one of my highlights was, again, the piece about giving parents proper tools. I know that's what I always seek when as a parent, when I'm headed out to something, a workshop related to my kids, or I'm in the community, I'm always looking for the takeaway. And I want it to be very simple. I want it to be very detailed so that I don't have to figure it out. And I think when they were sharing that piece, that was big for me. And I think I've heard in some of our parent groups, a lot of the feedback too from Ben Franklin. I've heard parents say that they feel like they're engaged in that way at Ben Franklin. And I don't know, I haven't got a lot of feedback from other parent groups in our district, but that has been one that I've gotten very positive feedback from, and I thought that was great. And that was one of that was some of the feedback I did hear from parents, were like they felt engaged and they also felt empowered because things were very clear for them. You know, from the officers and other parents, and they just felt that it was a good group for them to learn from. So that was something that I took away from there. The one I wanted to touch on today was emotional intelligence and culturally responsive pedagogy that was facilitated by Dr. Dina Simmons. And she was speaking to cultural biases, but then how we we internalize these expectations. And then she spoke to it from an individual level, family level, and then community. And for me, when she had shared how she was internalizing it, she was sharing how she received all of these expectations from her teachers who told her she had to do well and why she had to do well. And then she was hearing it at home. But they also gave her expectations that she had to basically adopt, embrace, and live up to. She gave so many different examples in her. Unfortunately, they said we could download her PowerPoint, but when I had gone on, it wasn't available. But I actually reached out to her and asked if she could share it, because everyone in the room we were moved. And I think Ms. Tejada was in there for a little bit. We were very moved because she was talking also about implicit bias. And that was a reminder to me how we had talked about that last time. And she was talking about diversity of thought. And a lot of times when we speak to diversity, for me, I'm always thinking, oh, it's an ethnic diversity, but it's not. She broke it down where diversity of thought, where a lot of times we're not having these conversations in the classrooms when we're asking our students about diversity. Are we creating those conversations about their diversity of thought and breaking it down in that way? And I said to myself, I never looked at diversity in that way, and it was creating different kinds of conversations. And then she moved that discussion into mental health. So she was talking about how if we're breaking it down in that way, creating diverse conversations from a student perspective, that allows them to open up in a way that, is very innovative, that we're not really doing. It's not mainstream. And that really struck a chord for me because, again, that's someone being creative in the process of engaging these courageous conversations that some of our kids need. So I know that Soul Shop is doing a lot of this restorative justice, but I have to say she's pretty amazing. And being on the Commission of Status of Women, we had reached out to her that she could come out and talk to young women and even engage young men, to understand where she was coming from. But she showed a lot of footage, and then she had shared with me footage of groups that she created out of Yale, and then she travels throughout the country. She actually just came back from Hawaii and did a group with them. But the level of engagement that she's able to create, and she does this training and she shares, her curriculum, I just thought it was amazing. I mean, she didn't even her energy was amazing, but she was teaching teachers how to create that energy. Because sometimes we succumb to dread, in all honesty. We come to work every day, it becomes very routine, but she was able to create that spark, and I saw it in her videos. And I thought that was amazing. Sometimes we do need to be recharged. And today's events are a testament to making sure that we are opening up those lines of communication. And she did that. She sparked that in me, and I know she did that to everyone else in that room. So she said that she would forward that to me. I reached out to her last week when I remembered I was presenting today, but I will reach out to her again. But she's also got a lot of stuff, TED Talks and things like that on online as well. But that's what moved me, because I was quite disappointed And I have conveyed my disappointment because I feel the district spends a lot of money at CSBA conferences. So I don't think it's fair that we walk in and I went to, for example, Superintendent Vidalis and I, we had gone to one and we waited for them to come up for 20 minutes. So during that small period of time where you're trying to sit in a workshop, I had to go to 3. And the other 2, they didn't get through all of their panel and it was almost over. And I was waiting to hear the 3rd speaker. And to experience that and you look at the money that we spend, for me is disappointing. It really is, because we should not be wasteful in the money that we're spending when we go to these conferences, even though our spirit is to be there and be engaged. I was very vocal about that to CSBA, and Mike Walsh was like, okay, it's her again. But yeah, because I'm very vocal about that. It's not right. It's really not right. You know, we deserve better. We do. We spend a lot of money there. So, but other than that, last time we got the youth cinema project from there. We talked about ethnic studies, and we all come away with pieces that we get to share here. But I still feel that we need to hold CSBA accountable, because that's what we should be doing.
Well, we did our evaluation of the attending that the conference, and I let them have it too, because that was the first time I ever went to a CSBA conference where it had to be all digital. And if they couldn't get it working, it wasn't our fault. Especially the elevators weren't working, and everything was not working. And I think they learned. And I'm not sure they're going to go back there until they know that they can do it right. So,
for me, my main critique is that they have the same presenters, and a lot of times the presenters are just saying, well, this is our program and this is what we did, but it's not
relevant.
Right. Well, it just becomes like a bragging fest, like, well, here's what we did, but I don't always get the information that I need that will help us, but whenever I go to multiple workshops during the same time, I at least try to get as much materials as I can. So.
yeah. But like you said, we always come back with something, you know.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Thank you, Trustee Ali. And at this time, board member comments, reports, and reflection. Trustee Ali.
So Ms. Brizuela and I attended a budget and not facilities. Budget and facilities update. And it was the same information that was presented this evening, but it felt good to get the information first and be able to think about it before I came to the meeting. So I just want to actually commend Ms. Kessler for her due diligence of keeping track of all these things, and just to remind us all that our reserves are golden, and we've been making good use of them, but it's very plain to see that even the county now is saying to watch it. So just want to remind us of that.
Thank you.
Okay, so I went to my meeting with Shaquille for the budget and everything, and it was nice because it gave us a chance to ask questions too ahead of time, and not spend all the time asking it now. But thank you very much, because that was good. First, I served on that committee for many years, so I was glad to be there. I'm trying to think of this. Oh, did you do your focus?
Yeah, I was focused on the best interests of our students at all times.
Okay, so I'll start with that. So we keep our remarks brief and to the point, and stay focused on the topic at hand, and avoid getting sidetracked. Mm-hmm. Just to mention that we did have our session with CSBA rep talking about how we handle all this business here, and we did take those that were on the board, and we consolidated some of them instead of having so many of the items, and so that'll be coming out soon. We'll be adopting it in public, and you'll all see that. So other than that, I think we said most of it in the beginning. So I don't think I have anything else to add to it. So that's it.
Thank you. Trustee Koo?
I selected we'll work towards the future, learning from the past. I feel like I picked this one a lot, but I thought tonight we talked about makerspace, we talked about budgeting for the future, as well as adopting a job description for the school resource coordinator. I thought that worked really well for a lot of these things.
Thank you.
I was reflecting on these and thinking that in some ways the only one we really need that encompasses it all is, as Mr. Ali said, that we will keep our focus on the best interest of our students. And so that's what was in my mind tonight, was how we serve the best interests of our students and how everybody does or tries.
Thank you. I also chose that, so we were in sync tonight, three of us, keeping the focus and the best interests of our students. And I just wanted to make a mention for a few save the dates that I had also shared at the city council meeting. I know it's far out, but we all live such busy lives. But March 1st, of course, is the kickoff of Women's History Month. And here at City Hall will be the Women's History Month celebration. They will be showing Hidden Figures, and they will have,
That's nice.
yeah,
I
that
like
would
that.
be nice for folks to join in. And Captain, or is it Chief? I'm sorry, Susan Mannheimer will be the keynote speaker that evening. I will also be representing the Commission on the Status of Women here too. So join us that evening. I'll have flyers. I think actually they have them upstairs, and they were supposed to produce them and give them to me today, but I'll make sure to get them out to you. That's a free event.
What time is it?
That starts at 6.
6?
And it's here at City Hall. And then the Women, Commission on Status of Women's exhibition also will be going to all the libraries throughout the county, and it actually starts in Foster City, and I will get the exact date when it will be at our libraries, if any of the families are interested in viewing that. Additionally, our leadership conference, the Women's Commission, is on March 24th, and it is going to be honoring, one of our honorees is Board Trust Jefferson Union High School Board Trustee Kalima Salhuddin. She's one of the 3 honorees. While the tickets are $100, there is a scholarship available and a promo code. So if anyone's interested, we've gotten a lot of students and even individuals who were unable to pay the fee to get that waived. So if you are interested, let me know. But I think it's wonderful that we get to recognize someone from North County, which is really rare for us here. So those are my 2 mentions for this evening.
So could you mention who the other 2, who are the other 2 individuals that are being
I
recognized?
should know that, but I don't know it off the top of my head, but I
Just
will find a
wondering.
flyer for you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Bless you. Bless you. Bless you. Okay. I don't know if we have any other cards, Ms.
And what time is the one on March 24th? Do you know that? Yeah.
March 24th? It's an all-day conference, so the conference starts at 8:30 in the morning, and then the actual ceremony is at 3:30. But I'll make sure that everyone gets
Okay.
the
So
flyer for
save
that.
the date then.
Yes, you can save the date for that one. So we do not have any persons wishing to address the board at this time. So we will be convening to closed session, but we will be adjourning and asking for moments of silence in honor of Virginia Hagan, mother of Paul Hagan, president of our AFT 3267, as well as Jackie Norman, retired maintenance coordinator. Is that the one you had mentioned? Or
Is that her last title? Okay.
Okay.
I had different title for her before, but
And I also wanted to add the families and victims in Florida to that list. So if we could observe a moment of silence. Meeting adjourned to closed session.